Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about people who die. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela.
And welcome back to our podcast where we talk about, we terribly tell you terrible stories.
We tell you sometimes terrible stories, sometimes
but with our own little
entertaining
flair,
stories.
yeah. But they're still terrible.
Yeah.
But it's our Valentine's Day episode, even though we're not really
covering Valentine's
Day murders because
I didn't want to. The only one that sort of interested me was the school shooting one, and I didn't want to cover it because it's way too much of a scope for me to be covering that. Yeah. It seemed too soon for me to be talking about it.
Yeah. No, completely, for sure. Yeah. But it is Valentine's Day today, so I hope you guys, if you're with your loved ones, if you're together, I hope you guys have a great day. If you're single, I hope you have a really good
self-care, self-love day.
Yeah.
Put on a face mask.
AdamandEve.com has some really amazing. This is not sponsored.
This is not an ad. We don't have any. We don't get any money for it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of self-love you can do to yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not doing a Valentine's Day murder because, I just didn't even look it up. I thought that would be a lot of people would do that.
There was a Valentine's Day massacre, but I'm like, everyone's going to do this one. I don't want to do it.
It's kind of like the same thing with the Christmas special, right?
Yeah.
Like I wanted to do a theme, but instead I just did a killer couple because nothing says I love you like finding another person that will kill with you. Like, I think it's just so magical. It's so romantic to find someone that shares the same interests with you, or in this case, just loves you so fucking much that they would just do whatever because they have absolutely no percentage of no. I was actually thinking about doing Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, but
because they are a killer couple.
They are a killer couple, and it is local for me. But because she pisses me off.
Yeah, she does.
But not that anybody else doesn't piss me off.
And she's also free, so that's another big thing.
And it's just like everybody knows that story. I don't want to tell that story. I want to tell a different story that maybe no one's ever heard of, like this one. So we're just going to get right into it. So
do it.
Marlene Louise Olive was born January 15th, 1959. And was put up for an adoption as newborn. She would later be adopted by an elderly couple named James, who goes by Jim, and Naomi Olive. Marlene.
I love Olive as the last name. That's really cute.
Yeah, it's really cute. And it's like, I just lost my thought.
I watched that TV show called Pushing Daisies, and then
I don't know if I ever saw that.
Oh, it was a really cute show. And then
it sounds familiar, but it
was about the guy. It was about Lee Pace, who if he touches you, he could bring you back to life. But if he touches you again, and you die. Yeah. But then you only have a minute to live, or else someone else dies in your place.
Oh,
yeah.
I think I watched maybe an episode, the beginning.
So you own a pie shop, so he would buy already dead strawberries and stuff, bring them back to life that one time, and then you get the best.
Oh my
pies.
gosh, that sounds.
And then he kept roses and flowers in your pie, so they would die instead.
That's so smart. Can he? Was he able to attach the death onto something specific, or was it just random?
It was random. That was the problem.
Ooh.
Yeah, but then
he
brought his dog back to life, so he couldn't touch his dog. So he had a little stick that he rubbed. It was so cute.
Oh my gosh!
He brought his childhood love back, and he couldn't touch her again. But it was the most. They used to kiss through Saran wrap, and it was probably the cutest show I'd ever seen. And then when it got canceled, I was so sad about it.
That sounds so sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, go on. Sorry.
So Marlene spent most of her childhood and early teens living in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Okay.
Where her father worked as a marketing executive for Tenneco and Gulf Oil. Marlene was real close to Jim, but reportedly had a troubled relationship with her mother, Naomi, because supposedly Naomi suffered from alcoholism and some mental illness, which the two kind of go hand in hand most of the time. And yeah. At age 14, Marlene moved back to the U.S. After her father lost his job and the family settled down in Marin County, California. Jim became a self-employed small business consultant and seemed to be doing pretty well for himself. Marlene, on the other hand, wasn't transitioning to the American life as easily. Growing up in Ecuador, it was extremely sheltered. She obviously wasn't exposed to a lot comparatively to California, which like drugs and alcohol, and there is so much like freedom where you could do whatever the fuck that you wanted.
All the hippies.
Yeah. Well, it actually was during the hippie time.
Yeah, 70s, right?
Yeah.
60s?
Well, she was born at 1959, and it's like 15 years later, so 1970s.
Yeah, so
1965.
It's like the end of the love, but still a lot of freedom and a lot of like glam and stuff.
Yeah. So after having some minor health issues, she began using her prescription drugs recreationally, as well as some other drugs, in order to socialize with the other kids, who were very different than her friends and the friends that she had back in Ecuador, obviously. Marlene started getting interested in glam rock, witchcraft, and sex work. The relationship between Marlene and Naomi got a lot worse as well. Marlene stated that Naomi had repeatedly called her a whore and other names, and their arguments would quickly turn violent.
Jeez.
Marlene also said that the reason why she got into sex work was because her mother always called her a whore. Over time, Marlene started to develop resentment towards Jim because he was always siding with the mom in the disputes because that's his wife, so he kind of has to, and you were probably being a fucking unruly 15-year-old child.
Because most 15-year-old children are.
Yeah. And she also suspected him of calling the police on her and her friends for their drug use often. Marlene, and
Which is what most parents would probably do, actually. So yeah.
Good on him. Like, sorry that your parents seemed like they were being good parents, other than maybe Naomi, because if she was calling you a whore and all this stuff, like that's not good parenting.
But calling a cop on you because you're doing drugs, I can see that. That's what parents do.
Your elderly parents were worried about you and the lifestyle that you were, going down. They were probably sitting there like, did we make a mistake moving to America? And the answer was yes. You should have stayed in Ecuador. Okay, so Marlene starts going downhill real quick. She starts shoplifting. She's stealing her parents' money and credit cards. She would use and abuse drugs and alcohol, often overdosing. She would run away from home. She started dating some not so great dudes who were usually criminals. The guys were doing other crimes like burglary, breaking and entering, and assault. She would tag along for these crimes because she was like all into it. Marlene would often talk to her friends about wanting to kill her parents and even asked a few of them to help her, but most didn't really believe her or take her seriously, or did they just decided not to get involved, but they never went to the authorities. And it's just like, oh my fucking God.
I do feel like it's just talk though. And like when you're 16, that's what you say.
Yeah, but she was doing it all of the time. Like all of the time trying to plan killing her parents.
You don't want to snitch. Snitches get stitches.
And at one point, Marlene even attempted to kill Naomi by mixing large doses of prescription drugs into her food, but they made the food taste bad, and Naomi would refuse to eat it. And it's just like, good for you, Naomi.
Yeah.
Good for you. Don't eat food that tastes weird.
No.
People listening to this podcast, if your food tastes a little off, don't fucking keep eating it.
Just spit it out, throw it away. Make it again yourself.
Make your own food.
Yeah. But then I guess like that is also possible. Like the condiments could be.
There's so much. Yeah. Like
nowadays there's like tasteless poisons. So
oh my God. Yeah.
Don't eat anything.
Yeah. Don't eat anything. Die from starvation. In 1974, at the age of 15, Marlene met and started dating Chuck Riley, a 19-year-old high school dropout who worked as a newspaper and pizza delivery man, and he was also a bartender and a factory worker. So he worked a lot of like low end jobs.
Yeah.
He was a very large, obese man. Had been obese his whole life. Never had a girlfriend before. But after meeting Marlene, he developed a huge crush on her and began to pursue her heavily, offering her free drugs, gifts, and listening to her complain about her parents.
That's all she ever wanted.
It's all she ever wanted. Marlene was at first put off by his weight, but probably got over that real quick once he started giving her all of the things.
Yeah.
And the two began having a sexual relationship that was heavily controlled by Marlene, which when I was originally reading this story, I was like, this poor fucking boy.
Yeah.
Like, he probably had like no self-worth.
And
he
such low self-esteem.
So much self-esteem issues from being overweight and stuff like that.
Probably made fun of his entire life.
Yep. And he probably was like, here's a girl, I love her so much, and she loves me.
Yeah.
And like, had to give her all this stuff.
She will sleep with me. Yeah. And that's really, that's a big deal.
Yep. She would ask him to do things, and if he said no, she would threaten to break up with him, and apparently claimed to have magical powers to have control over him, which he apparently believed. Like, she believed that she was a witch and that she was controlling him, and that if he didn't do anything, then she would like ruin his life and break up with him and never speak to him again.
She has that pussy power.
Yeah. So. I actually wrote that down. Yeah, that's called a pussy. Like, that's all it was.
It's
like,
the pussy power.
It's a 19-year-old boy that's having sex for the first time.
Yeah.
He's all fucking doped
his
up on
hormones are completely controlling his brain at that point. Like, that's it.
She's a witch. No, you just like getting your dick wet. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all it is. Oh my God. Okay. Either way. He began doing anything he could in order to please her to keep the relationship going. And it wasn't long before Marlene starts asking him, oh my God, Stephanie, get your words together.
It's okay.
Marlene starts asking him for help and advice on how to kill her mother, and even suggested that he kill her parents for her.
No, Chuck.
And so in March of 1975, the couple was arrested for going on a prolonged shoplifting spree, stealing over $6,000 in merchandise. And it's the 70s, guys. That's a lot of fucking stuff.
Yeah, like nowadays it's a lot, but this is...
It's a lot to, like, big. When you hear, like, oh, they stole $6,000 of stuff, you probably think they're stealing, like, a lot of high-end electronics.
Yeah.
This was, like, hair accessories.
Oh, my gosh.
Clothing, like, low-end jewelry.
So
like,
much
just,
stuff.
They were on a fucking high. They were just like, we're just going to steal all this shit. They were probably on so much drugs. And so they were arrested, and they were charged with theft. A few months later, Chuck was arrested again for possession of marijuana and a sawed-off shotgun. And at this point, Jim and Naomi, who had previously been super supportive of the relationship, threatened their daughter to end the relationship or she would be sent to a juvie school. They even got a court order against Chuck not to come to the house anymore, with Jim apparently threatening that he would kill Chuck if he ever returned to the house.
Poor Chuck.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, like
he's not a good guy at this point. He is,
but
he's like
providing her all the drugs. He's not a good guy, but at the same time, it's like it sounds like she has way more control over him.
Yeah, and she was definitely on a path that was going downhill. Before that, and they're probably looking at like, oh, Chuck's a bad influence. No, your fucking daughter is a bad influence. Mm-hmm. So on Saturday, June 21st, 1975, Marlene and Naomi get into another explosive fight. And afterwards, Marlene calls Chuck and tells him, get your gun. We've got to kill this bitch today. Then she goes downstairs and asks her father to take her outside for something. Let's just say it's ice cream. Leaving her mom alone so that Chuck could come and kill her. And she even left the door unlocked and everything. So Chuck goes and takes some LSD to, pump himself up. And I don't really know why he decided to do this, but whatever. He then goes to the house and enters the house with a .22 caliber revolver. Chuck told the police that after entering the house, he struck Naomi many times with a hammer, stabbed her, and suffocated her. And unfortunately for everyone involved, Jim and Marlene came back too early. And Jim caught Chuck near his dead wife, covered in blood. So Jim picked up a knife that was nearby and ran towards Chuck, exclaiming, I'll fucking kill you. And that's when Chuck drew his gun and shot Jim 4 times, killing him. Marlene and Chuck then tried to dispose of the bodies by transporting them to a wooded area in the nearby China camp and burning them in a barbecue pit with gasoline and logs in order to attempt to make them unrecognizable. And then they just left the bodies while it was still burning. So obviously some witnesses had seen that, and they were just like, oh, hey, there's a fire in this wooded area. And they called the fire, and the fireman arrives, and he just thinks that it's a dead deer carcass and someone was trying to burn a deer.
Yeah.
So he puts the fire out and leaves.
I mean, usually you don't think you see a dead body.
I would think well, they probably charred it up enough where it wasn't recognizable.
Or
but
I wonder how common it is that people like burn deers and stuff. That's what the guy thought.
I mean, but he left it there, and I was like, why would you not like dispose of the carcass? Like, you're just gonna. I mean, because bugs in the earth needs.
It's not your problem.
Yeah.
You put out a fire. That's good enough.
The couple later returned to the park and further burned the remains along with additional evidence. So they just like burned it a little bit more. Having called in a friend, Marlene and Chuck go back to the house to clean up, removing the blood from the carpet, walls, and furniture. And they confide in the friend who helped clean and in several other friends, as they were boasting about it, that they had killed her parents, specifically informing them that Chuck physically carried out the killings. And then Chuck told them we had to do it. They wouldn't let me see her. And I look at that as she was controlling that. In being like,
she controls the situation for sure.
Oh, she most
definitely
definitely does.
One of those things where you hear this is very rare. I feel like usually males control the females, and no, she controlled him. Yeah.
And she was like, "No, we got to get our story straight. You did this,
and she was smart enough to put all of it on him.
Chuck physically was the one that did it. And I was out with my dad, and then he came home and he had killed my mom, and then he shot my dad. And whatever. People probably would have believed you if you weren't such a crazy bitch that did all this other stuff. Okay, so Marlene and Chuck then continued to live together at the house for several days, attending a concert, shopping, eating at restaurants, and paying their expenses using cash checks and credit cards taken from her dead parents. They allegedly planned to wait for Jim and Naomi to be declared dead, collect their life insurance money, and then move to Ecuador. But it was just like, how did you plan on them being declared dead, Marlene?
Yeah.
You clearly weren't thinking this out. A few days later, Jim's business partner became concerned over his absence at work, because that's what happens. And then he contacts the police, who visits the house, and they speak to Marlene. And she provides these various alibis for herself and Riley, which the police later determined were false. Mm-hmm. And stories about how her parents had either disappeared or had died. At a different time, she claimed that one parent had killed the other and then disappeared with the body, or that both parents were killed by the Hells Angels. Like, she was just telling fucking stories.
All the drugs.
Yeah. Marlene then informed her friend that the police had come by looking for her parents, but that she had convinced them that they were gone and that the police were no longer a problem. But spoiler alert, the police were not convinced. And neither was the friend. So the friend who had helped clean up the apartment and had witnessed everything, well, not the murders or anything, but the one that they had called in to help clean the apartment, she then goes to the police and tells them about the blood in the room and then a couple statements about killing the parents and the burning bodies of the camp. And so the police go and they search the barbecue pit, and they determine that the bone fragments, that the fragments in the fire were human remains and not the deer carcass. And so they go and arrest Marlene and Chuck. Quickly after his arrest, Chuck makes a full detailed confession in which he said that he and Marlene had been planning to kill her parents for some time, that he had beaten, stabbed, and suffocated Naomi and then shot Jim, and that Marlene had made him do it. However, Marlene claimed that Chuck killed her parents on his own accord and then afterwards held her hostage and forced her to take drugs and raped her.
And you know what? Her story sounds more believable, and they probably believed her immediately.
No, because they already had the testimony from the friends.
Oh, okay, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So they were probably just like, no,
if it was just psycho. A he said, she said, though, then she would have probably.
And then the friend, because the friend was probably like, oh yeah, and she had been talking about wanting to murder her parents
forever,
far beyond she even met this Chuck dude. Mm-hmm. Like, for years, she's been talking about this. So because of his what is with me? Confection. So he's not a baker.
Confectionaries.
Okay, so because of his confession, Chuck, who was 20 at the time, was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and faced the death penalty. Under hypnosis during the trial, which is like, why is he under hypnosis? I don't understand. Must have been
it was
a crazy
like truth serum, basically.
Maybe it is. It is the 70s. Riley would recant his confession and state that when he entered the house, he found Naomi bleeding from a head wound with a hammer already embedded in her head. Then he implied that Marlene had beaten her mother with the hammer before leaving with her dad, and then in a way to end Naomi's suffering, he stabbed and suffocated her to help her along because she was
suffering so much.
There's just like, well, then why the fuck did you stab her? If she already had the hammer in the head and you just wanted to
get it over with,
get faster. It over, like, yeah, but he like stabbed her a lot.
And only just make sure.
Yeah, he then claimed that he confessed to killing Naomi in order to protect Marlene by taking the blame. He also admitted to shooting Jim, but that it was out of self-defense and fear as Jim was running at him and threatened to kill him. Which, yeah. Okay. But the jury didn't believe him, and they convicted him on both counts of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to death on January 26, 1976. However, in December of that year, California State Supreme Court changed their laws regarding the death sentence, and so he was commuted to be charged with 2 concurrent life sentences with the possibility of parole after 7 years. While in jail, Riley lost a ton of weight, received his high school diploma, and earned a college degree, and was all around a pretty decent inmate.
He was probably not in a trajectory to become a shitty person.
No.
It's just that he fell in love with the wrong person.
He probably could have like done a lot more with his life if he had just met somebody else.
Someone else.
Yeah.
And
so he was doing pretty well in the inmate. However, he was constantly denied for his parole until 2011 when he was originally granted parole. But that got overturned by the Californian governor, Jerry Brown, who said, although Chuck professes to accept some responsibility, he continues to downplay his role in the crime. And until Mr. Riley is able to come to terms with his role in this horrendous double murder, I do not believe that he will be able to avoid violent behavior if released. Chuck then tries to reverse like that by saying like that he's a 56-year-old man. Now he's got like these physical disabilities and he wouldn't be a danger to anybody. And for like the next 5 years, they're basically fighting over like this appeal.
Yeah.
And in January 2016, the Court of Appeals believed him. They reversed the governor's decision, and he was deemed suitable for release and was granted parole. Marlene, on the other hand, because she was considered a minor at 16, was tried as a juvenile rather than an adult, and she was only charged with violating Section 602 of the California State Welfare and Institutions Code, which at the time covered any crime committed by a juvenile, from petty crimes all the way up to murder.
Jeez.
There's just like a little blanket that anybody can have. Mm-hmm. And the judge stated that she encouraged, instigated, aided, and acted as an accomplice in the homicides of her parents. And the judge would later state that the uncontroverted evidence regarding the father is that Chuck Riley killed him. But as to who did in the mother, we'll never know. Because it is possible that maybe she did kill her mom.
Yeah.
And
she's gonna keep her mouth shut about it.
And then he
sure.
covered it up. You know what I mean? Like it's possible. Marlene was sentenced to a term of 4 to 6 years confinement in the California Youth Authority at Ventura, and was later allowed to serve part of her term living outside of the school with a young woman who was been a juvenile services volunteer. However, a few weeks before Marlene was due to be paroled, she escaped and fled to New York City, where she began working as a sex worker. And it's just like, Marlene,
why don't you just wait?
You just had a couple weeks, girl.
Yeah, just wait.
You could have. What was that? You couldn't have just wait. That you were already in there for like 4 to 6 years.
Yeah,
like, what is a couple weeks at this point?
No, it's very self-destructive. That's for sure.
So she obviously gets rearrested, and then they send her back to California to finish her sentence. And then she's finally released in 1980 at the age of 21. And then after being released, she moved to Los Angeles area, where she changed her name a whole bunch of times and was arrested for at least 7 different times over the next decade for forgery and drug-related charges, serving 2 one-year terms in jail. In 1986, she was one of 14 people arrested in Los Angeles for allegedly operating a large counterfeiting and forgery ring, of which she was thought to be the ringleader, which totally fucking believe that she probably was.
Yeah.
She had a lot of leadership skills. Yeah, she did.
Let's for sure say that.
She was subsequently convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. In 1992, the Los Angeles Times article calls her the Queen of the Trashers due to her alleged skills at committing forgery and fraud and creating false identities based on documents such as voided checks obtained from discarded garbage. Police said that they had rarely come across a street-level forger believed to be as prolific or as skilled as Marlene Olive. She served an additional prison terms in California after a 1992 conviction for making a false financial statement. And in 1995, a conviction for possessing a forged driver's license. It's just a bunch of fucking forgeries. That's all she's doing.
There's someone's gonna make a movie about her soon.
No, there are.
Okay.
I didn't write down what they were.
Oh, okay.
And she eventually is sentenced to 7 years in prison, but she gets out of that too. And it's just like, this fucking girl was in and out of prison for her whole life. And then Chuck is like stuck in there and they're just like, well, we can't let her out because, you know, she might still have violent tendencies. And it's like, this fucking bitch was the problem. Like, she's the one that's, oh my gosh, I can't. So Marlene only saw Chuck once after they were arrested. She visited him once in prison in 1981. After the visit, Riley said that I'll never see her again. And she never went back to visit him.
I wonder if it was because she was basically there to make sure that he wasn't gonna.
Yeah, it was probably just like, hey, thanks for taking the fall for me. Bye.
Bye. Yeah. Peace out.
Peace out. So yeah, that was my. I mean, it wasn't the best killer couple, but I was just like,
it was a good killer couple. I do remember some of it, but I think I had read it when I was like looking for
that's my
stories. But that's really good.
Thanks.
Mine has nothing to do with love. It's not even a murder; it's just a death. So
shit.
God,
I hope they die spectacularly.
No, so. This is, I talked about this with you beforehand and told you I was going to cover it.
Ooh.
So this is about the K-pop group.
Oh, yes.
Ladies Code. And it's very recent. Or it's recent enough that, yeah, it's 2014. So it's pretty recent.
It's within the last 20 years.
So let's do like a quick like description of K-pop culture. In case, like you watched the Explained.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives you like a really quick rundown.
Very big in Korea.
It's very big. So unlike most westernized musical groups, K-pop artists and groups typically go through a very rigorous training system.
Oh yeah, they start training you at like age 3.
12 years old.
They probably are prepping you before that.
They usually pick you out. They'll like see you in the markets. They'll pick you out, and then they perfectly groom you for the role. And it takes up to 10 years for an agency to groom a trainee before they debut. And the training is like dancing, singing lessons, English speaking, Korean speaking, Chinese and Japanese because you need to go international. And they basically force you into a slave contract as well.
You're curated.
Yeah. It's often known as a slave contract. And if you look it up on Wikipedia, that's what it comes up. Mm-hmm. And the trainees will live in dormitories with other trainees, and every aspect of their lives is controlled by management companies.
Wow.
From their diet, love lives, to the behavior and personalities, idols are molded to individually fit the roles that need to be filled in whatever group they end up fitting into. So if you're tagged as the baby one, you had to always, no matter where you are, always act like the baby role forever.
That's your character.
That's it. That's your character forever. You're the leader. That's your character forever.
So, like, I wonder, because I know that they do it for men and women, but I wonder if the women are like are treated worse.
No, the same. Men
really?
It's one of those things where, from what I read, they are treated equally badly.
Okay.
Equally. Okay. Yeah, because when they're 12, they're both treated like garbage.
Yeah, but it's just like treating a 12-year-old girl like garbage, in my sexist opinion, is like different than treating a 12-year-old boy.
It doesn't sound like abusive yet.
Yeah. But I just mean
there is that aspect of it. Well, I'll talk about it in another story. Yeah. But for this specific thing, it's just the training is really rigorous. Guys' diets are also very rigorous because guys also cannot get fat. Yeah. And they need to have that perfect physique.
The chiseled.
And they also have to get the same kind of plastic surgery done. So they all get the plastic surgery done. They're forced into it because you can't look. You have to look a certain way.
And it's sort of like why, so that you can pay for so that you can send money back to your parents or anything like that.
To be an idol. To be an idol is like to be a celebrity. Like an A+ celebrity, and it's kind of the only way to do it.
How many people would you say that they have going at like one time though? Because
A
like you
lot.
can't have like, do they have like 5,000 idols at one single time? That's insane.
They have I don't know about 5,000, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
entertainment groups that have their own idol training. There's like the big three, and then there's other idol groups, and they all train.
It's like
and
BTK,
hoping-
right? Is that what it's? No.
BTS.
BTS.
BTK is the
Yeah,
murderer.
that's my own thing.
BTS is the largest one right
Yeah.
now, and if you want to never,
Aren't they like 14 people
I think
in a
there's
band?
like 10 of them. I don't actually know,
Yeah.
but if you ever want to never be able to use the internet again, you can talk trash about them because the fangirls for these K-pop groups are
Fangirls used
nothing.
to be insane. Like I used to think that they were insane for the Backstreet Boys back in the
No,
90s.
Korean people
And
are
so-
way worse. I've heard about girls who use menstrual pads to
That's
other
so
fan groups. They throw like eggs. They'll throw tampons at their bands.
No.
They will chase them down to get into accidents. They'll tell them they should go kill themselves over and over again, which
Oh my
some of them
gosh.
do. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
real bad. They can't date. Like if you're in an idol group, you can't date anyone because
Yeah.
if you're caught dating someone, you're without the contract anymore. Like there's like a morality. There's like all these STEM clauses. But anyways, after their training, most contracts require idols to pay back their management teams for the training, housing, wardrobe, and living costs. So basically, they're in debt
Yeah.
for a really long time
Yeah.
afterwards because it's not like you debut and then you're big. Most of the time, you're pretty small.
And you're racking up like $1 million in debt.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even like BTS for a long time lived in those, So
Servitude.
it's because of that idols, especially the newer ones, will have none of their own money. Like all their money is from the management companies. The big three companies, SM Entertainment, YG Entertainment, and JYP Entertainment, don't require any debts to be paid as long as they stay the whole term of their contracts. But
How many years are the contracts?
until
though?
2009, the contracts could be 13 years.
Wow.
These were no joke contracts.
Yeah.
So after 2009, the contracts could only last 7 years, which is still a long fucking time to
Yeah.
basically have your entire life controlled by someone else.
Yes.
So
7 years a slave.
Ladies Code is a K-pop girl group that was formed by Polaris Entertainment in 2013. And Polaris is not a large recording company or anything. They're actually a subsidiary of Equang Group, who is a large conglomerate their main business is arms trade. But like a lot of conglomerates, you
branch out into
you do a lot of different
you
things.
meld
to
in other
see
things so you
what's
can
gonna
always
work.
have so much
Yeah.
money.
You never know where the money's going to come from.
Expanding your portfolio.
So
Diversifying your portfolio.
many of the
rather.
girls have a background in the entertainment industry before their debut. The one that like most people talk about, her name is RiSe, but because it's spelled RISE, everyone will say her name is RiSe, but it is RiSe. And I'm going to say her name a lot because she does, unfortunately, not make it out of the story.
Okay.
She participated in Miss Korea 2009, and she's actually originally from Japan. She's like from a Korean family. She's a fourth generation Korean family in Japan.
Okay.
But then she went to become a K-pop idol. EunB was a trainee under FNC Entertainment and was meant to debut with a different K-pop group called AOA, who is a large K-pop group. But then she left because she thought that she needed more training. Because sometimes it's really bad. It's actually worse to come out not fully trained because then you'll already, like, everyone will make fun of you immediately. You have to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Because the other girls in the group are.
Yeah. And if you're the one who sticks out as a non-perfect one, they fucking attack you. It's crazy. Crazy. So Sojung was a finalist on The Voice of Korea. Ashley, a former Cube Entertainment trainee, and Zuni, a former Big Hit Entertainment trainee. So their debut single, Bad Girl, did pretty well in March of 2013, and they were already talking about their comeback second mini album in September 2013. Because in like K-pop, you have to be constantly putting things out.
Yeah.
So
because there's so many of them.
So they're already like doing like, oh, we're gonna go comeback album. I'm like, it's only been like 6 months. How is that a comeback? But
They got to come back from something.
I remember when I was younger, like that's when like the beginning of like K-pop groups started, because there was a big one called HOT back in the day, and
So hot.
I know it was called High Five of Teenagers. That was their But the people who love that group are still rapidly crazy now, and they disbanded over a decade ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never loved anything that much.
Well, so since there are so many K-pop groups out there, to stay relevant for the smaller groups, it's important that they stay as relevant as possible. So they're constantly going out and doing different things. They're working like sometimes 16-hour days, like training and doing a different show and whatever, like everything possible.
They have to.
Yeah.
Because there's so much competition. And so if you have like one day off, like that could ruin your whole fucking career.
Or that one day could have been your big break.
Yeah.
So by September 1st, 2014, Ashley had revealed that they were working on a new album, although it's unknown if it would be full album or mini album or what was going on.
Okay.
But on September 3rd, 2014, at 1:30 a.m., the group was on their way back to Seoul after a KBS open concert at Daegu Gyeongbok Institute. And unfortunately, because it was monsoon season during this time, on the slippery road conditions, the group's manager, Mr. Park, was driving the van at 137 kilometers an hour.
That's extremely
in a 100
fast.
kilometer hour zone.
That's extremely
for
fast.
a distance of at least 30 kilometers.
Jesus Christ.
And it's like, the thing is, like, at that speed, that I go about that fast in the States sometimes.
Yeah, but like, I mean,
But it's raining.
I drive like 130 on the highway, but not when it's raining.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was raining. That was like the big...
And it's like monsoon, so it's not just like
a little bit of rain.
It's raining.
Mm-hmm. So local traffic laws state that speed should be lowered 20% during these kinds of conditions.
Yeah.
And it's because of these conditions that Park suddenly lost control of the vehicle, causing the car to hydroplane. The van skid several times before crashing into a protective wall in the vicinity of Shingal Junction of Yeongdong Expressway.
Oh no!
And obviously, some people don't survive this because
oh gosh, I was gonna say like
dying.
I was gonna be like, did they all die?
No.
Was it instant? I really did.
Unfortunately, it wasn't anything great. Park said that the back wheel of the van fell off in the accident. But after they've done some experiments and stuff, it appears as though the wheel fell off as a result of the car crash. In fact, before investigations were done, Polaris Entertainment was blaming the incident, saying that the rear wheel fell off because they don't want to blame it on the manager.
Yeah.
And some media at the time revealed that the van was trying to avoid collision with other cars before the fatal accident. But nothing was like
just
confirmed.
like, why was he driving that fast to begin with?
Because it's 1:30 in the morning. I think he was just tired and just wanted to go home. And I get that too, because that's how I got my first speeding ticket. Yeah. So Jesus. One netizen wrote, "My friend told me that he had seen the car shake. The driver swerved to avoid a collision. When the car turned, the car hit the wall and rolled over 3 times." But I mean, whenever people say things like that online, it's hard to know if it's like truth or but it could also be truth.
Yeah.
None of the airbags opened, although it's unknown if it would have helped or not. Because the airbags
if it hit the thing and then it flipped 3 times,
you would think the airbags would have opened. But I'm not sure if the airbags would have helped, because airbags are usually only in the front, right? Or are they also in the sides?
Sometimes they're on the sides. It depends on the vehicle. And
it's also uncovered that the van driven during the accident was rented, as they were experiencing problems with the management's vehicle earlier. So this was the first time that they had driven this van as well. And a firefighter on the scene said that at the time of the arrival, 4 people were outside of the van standing around: Ashley, Zuni, Park, and a stylist. And inside the car, there were 3 females: EunB, RiSe, and Sojong, all unconscious. There was
it's upside down? The van's upside down?
No, it was right side up. And because did you know that the press are actually pieces of shits, and no matter what country you go to?
Oh my God, yeah.
There's tons of pictures of that van. It's
really
great.
Man.
There was some speculation that the girls were not wearing their seatbelts.
Probably not.
Some sources said that they didn't remember removing seatbelts to get the girls out of the car, but nothing was confirmed or concrete on that.
Yeah.
EunB was...
They probably would have had to have cut them out, so they would remember that.
But even if they were, it may not have made a difference.
They weren't wearing their seatbelts, and I mean, no one died because they got like launched out of the vehicle.
Yeah, so that's why it's like they could have been wearing their seatbelts, and that's why they didn't get launched out.
Maybe.
EunB was pronounced DOA, while the remaining 6 passengers were rushed to various hospitals, depending on the severity of their condition. RiSe and Sojung were taken to the Catholic University of Korea's St. Vincent Hospital, so long of a name, in Sohwon, and they were both in critical condition. Sojung suffered a fractured jaw and arm, and her condition stabilized, but RiSe was not that lucky because she sustained a severe head injury and endured 9 hours of emergency brain surgery.
Yeah.
As RiSe's condition deteriorated, she was moved to Ajo University Hospital, where she died 4 days later on September 7th.
Oh, no.
Ashley, Zuni, Park, and one stylist sustained minor injuries. So like the manager and then the 2 girls and the stylist sustained minor injuries, but one of the girls who were in critical condition, Sojung, does survive.
Okay, well I mean, at least there were a couple survivors.
Yeah.
Ooh, sucks to be that manager though.
Yeah. Obviously, he's taken to court for this.
Obviously.
Yeah. The accident as a whole highlighted a major problem within the entertainment sector of Korea.
Why?
Local media questioned whether the round-the-clock schedule of idol groups should be changed. Maybe that's the reason why he was so tired, too. Maybe he was tired and he was driving home so quickly because they had such packed schedules. Because they had another act the very next day in Seoul, so they had to go back early.
But I mean...
Yeah. With new acts constantly popping up, performers that achieve some fame are often under pressure to work more hours to maximize exposure and revenue at the expense of sleep. Yeah. And that's why it was just like... You know, it was one of those things like, are you overworking them so much that you're killing them? And apparently there had been a lot of cases where fans will chase after the vans, or anti-fans will chase their van as well, and they'll get into accidents as well. Yeah. It's really, it's a different world. These fangirls from Korea are totally more crazed, I feel.
Like,
more,
I remember when I was growing up, I remember reading one article where like the fans had like chased after and was like pushing on the Backstreet Boys or the NSYNC bus or whatever, and they were shaking the bus, and I just remember thinking like, oh yeah, and then a girl got fucking trampled, and I just remember thinking, this is crazy. Like, how are people so obsessed about this? Like, why are there so many? Like, I've never understood it, but I bet you the moms of these fucking girls were probably doing the same shit at the Beatles.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and then these people and their kids are doing it to Justin Bieber now.
Yeah. So. And it's like, I don't understand it.
I feel like I made a speculation myself. I didn't read it anywhere else or anything, but I was like, maybe because Korea makes so much focus on your studies, you need an outlet, and this is their outlet.
I don't know. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I can't understand the mentality over it. Like to me, it's like you're putting so many people in danger, and for what? So that you can have a little glimpse.
Well, K-pop groups, their entire image is to make it seem like they're your boyfriend. That's what they do. That's why they don't date.
That's so dangerous.
That's why K-pop idols are not allowed to have a love life, because you're selling you this idea that you're attainable, that they are your boyfriends, they are everything to you.
So dangerous. That is so dangerous.
Totally works.
That's how stalkers happen.
Yep.
That's how crazy murders happen. Oh my gosh. And they're doing it at such a young age too. Like,
and it works. But I mean, like, some of them do debut when they're like 20, but even then you've been sheltered for so long. Like,
it's the 12-year-old girls that they're pitching this to.
Yeah.
It's that I'm just
they're pitching this idea of like, you'll be idolized forever. It's not people will love you, and they do love you eventually, maybe.
Yeah, but those girls, like the fans, like, that's so dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's the it's the mentality with the fans that I like, that these people are breeding that. Yeah. Like, that's what they're breeding. And it's like, to me, like, that's incredibly dangerous.
And it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. They're not going to stop it. It makes so much money.
No, because it's fucking money, and who cares? Like, who cares how, like, well, you know what? They'll just grow up out of it. And it's just like, no, they don't.
Money's always more important than people.
Always. It should be in every fucking episode of our podcast.
It is. Money's always more important than people.
Yep.
So Ashley, Zuni, and Sojung returned to their group dorm in Seoul on November 12th, which is kind of crazy because it's like 2 months later.
Yeah.
With Sojung continuing to receive outpatient treatment. In fact, all of them still started receiving counseling because
you fucking have to.
Two of your very, very close friends who you spent all your time with, and
and they probably have survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. They probably saw some shit in that van. Like, they probably saw their friends die. Like,
and unfortunately, with this kind of stuff, is that when you die, you become really popular.
Yeah.
So
because the media and the management team,
and
they're gonna milk it because they can get a lot more. Well, I shouldn't say they can get a lot more money out of you with your death, but maybe they
do.
They'll still try to get their dollars.
So after EunB and RiSe's death, the group achieved major success as fans of the group began posting on online communities and encouraging people to listen to their song "I'm Fine, Thank You" as a tribute to EunB's dream of ranking first on the music charts. And so they did. That song as well as "Kiss Kiss" went on to the top several charts.
So the surviving people made their own little, kept their own group. They didn't split them up?
No.
Oh. Did they add more people into that group?
No.
Okay.
Not as of not as of this year at least. But yeah. So those two songs became really popular, but this was during a time when they were still recovering. This was still right after RiSe.
Yeah, but I mean that's the best time to get a hit out there. Everyone's talking about you.
Mm-hmm. So the hashtags RIP EunB and RIP RiSe trended on Twitter after the accident, as it always does, right?
Yep.
EunB's funeral was held on September 5th, and since the media is the fucking worst, they took a ton of photos and videos of Ashley and Zuni in their neck braces crying.
No, let them have the funerals.
Nope.
Wow, they don't even get that?
They got nothing. They literally, they loved it. They
oh my God.
tons of things of these girls who just got out of a terrible car accident, who could barely walk.
Poor families.
And they had all these camera crew people just videotaping.
It's so real. Look at this.
I know, look how sad they look.
Oh my God.
Just.
No.
So, EunB's mom said to Ashley and Zuni, "Don't ever give up. You guys have to continue on for EunB. Ashley, since your mom is not here, because I think she's from the States, I'll be your Korean mother." It was one of those things where it's just she lost her daughter, but she also knew that her daughter's dream was this group. So she wanted to make sure that the group still continued, because then her daughter will still get remembered. You don't want your daughter to be completely forgotten. And if you don't want to feel like her life was wasted, I guess. She died for no reason. At least there's
at least you guys can
her.
Be a little bit you guys can keep being successful, so
and people remember her. Yeah,
getting that paycheck.
They don't get paid. No.
The parents?
No one gets paid for that. They don't get paid for a long time. I
would have thought that.
She still owes money for you know.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God! You think that they would have just wiped the slate clean after the death? But
money.
No.
I don't think so.
Oh my God!
They don't say it online, but I'm assuming that she doesn't get much.
Well,
I think she does from the management, the manager, but that's different.
Yeah, that's a lawsuit.
So during her final goodbye, EunB's mom said, "I'm sorry, Mom couldn't do better for you. I'm so sorry."
Oh my God, no.
This was especially hard since on September 2nd, EunB said in an interview, "I want to spend a day eating chuseok food," which is Thanksgiving food, because that's when Thanksgiving was.
Yeah.
With my family at home for the first time in a long time. The little things in life are the happiest. And she had said that the day before she died. So, I think it was just the fact that she was already talking about the fact she hasn't seen her parents in a long time.
Yeah.
And she wants to spend it.
And here she is. She just wants to go and have she just wants to have
family
her
time.
Little piece of happiness away from this horrible fucking schedule that she's in.
She's always working. She's always training. But it's that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
All
looking
of them
forward
do
to
it.
this one little thing, and then she didn't even get to have it. That's.
And Sojong was not able to attend the funeral, and she wasn't even told about the deaths for a while because she had to go through surgery and didn't want her to put her into shock.
Yeah, that's probably because she has to heal on her own, right? And so, like, it would only make things worse, probably.
So their final performance aired on KBS on September 14th, 2014, because they had their final performance on the 3rd, and
they still aired it?
They still aired it on the 15th, 14th as a tribute, which is what they do. Because it's the last recorded thing, and some families would rather see that than
I guess it's like, maybe. Like, I think that's too soon. Like 14 days, you haven't even finished the investigation into the car. Why are you doing a tribute? The tribute should be the following year.
Nope.
Or like months later after everyone's in the hospital.
One in the future, but yeah. So on September 12th, 2014, Park was arrested and indicted on the charge of causing a fatal accident under the Act of Special Cases Concerning the Settlement of Traffic Accidents. Oh my God. And was sentenced to a year and 2 months in jail on January 15th, 2015.
Wow.
Which is not really that long. But on March 25th, he filed for a reduced sentence.
Yep.
And April 8th, he reached a settlement agreement with both EunB and RiSe's family for an undisclosed amount. April 15th, his appeal was successful and his sentence was reduced. And he had to serve 160 hours of community service and 40 hours of law-abiding driving classes. Because it was a really bad accident, but I don't see, like, you hear about that kind of stuff. They weren't, It's one of those things.
But they definitely proved that it wasn't the tire. Like, the tire didn't, pop off. And okay.
So on September 26th, 2015, Zuni, Ashley, and Sojong resumed their practice schedule. They went right back to it.
How many days after?
It was April 26th, so it was like 6 months.
Okay.
They got into April.
That's fair.
Months. So
that's fair.
Yeah, they got back to their practice schedule because it's still their dream.
It's still their job. They still have to go. They're still under contract. At least they gave them the 6 months to like recover and like.
But you can't. It'd be worse to force them immediately because then they won't recover properly. Yeah. So a memorial concert was held in Tokyo in honor of RiSe's Japanese background on August 22nd, and Ladies Code continues to make music as a trio. And sometimes as a single act.
That's when they should have released that last thing, was at the memorial.
People really wanted it, though.
Yeah, like, who the fuck
As soon as the accident happened, it was everyone wanted to know every detail about everything that happened. People were looking for pictures of the dead bodies. Like, they were disgusting.
No.
And I'm just like, I can't. But then the Korean, like, they want it. They want it so bad. So they released it.
And it's just like, and you can get it. That's the problem.
And as soon as they release that tribute concert, and they make tons more money because you get more traction and people are more talking about you. And, it's an awful thing and it happened and 2 beautiful girls died. And it was one of those things where they had to move on, though. Those other girls had to move on and do other things because...
Yeah, life goes on.
Yeah,
and that's the sad part of it all, is that like the world just keeps going on.
Yeah, but not for their parents.
No, and probably not for those girls.
No, not for those girls. They're doing their best they can to obviously keep going because you have to. But I can't.
I really hope that I really hope that they were able to take some time to heal that properly.
I'm glad they got counseling because in Korea, mental health isn't actually a big issue. No one really talks about it. So I'm really glad that they actually thought these girls need counseling from all their survival skills.
Well, they're not going to be able to just like immediately put on their smiley face and like go back out there and start singing and
how awful is it that if you ever look up your name on Google, you're going to find these awful pictures of you crying at your like friend's funeral.
Don't ever Google yourself.
It's just
like, immediately, like I hate the paparazzi.
It's just so disgusting to me.
Like, have a little bit of respect.
Yeah.
Like, just give them the funeral. At least
the
fans don't deserve the funeral. The funeral is for the family and the people that are affected. And as a fan, you're not.
No. I don't want. It just those are the pictures that show up. But I'm just like, people. How could you do this?
Yeah,
to them?
like
this is so disrespectful.
They do like the showings. Like they do that for people, and like that's what you guys get to have. You don't get to destroy, taint, or ruin the funeral.
Yeah.
For these poor girls. Unless like maybe it is in the fucking contract. Like who knows? But no, they don't. That to me, that is so fucking rude. That's so rude.
It just gave me like that feeling of like, oh, this is what it's like. Like
that's
living here, you just don't see it.
I mean,
like
people crash like they do.
Yeah.
They crash funerals too, and they do all that stuff. But I feel like there's a certain line, but I can't even say that the paparazzi doesn't suck here because they most certainly
definitely
do
suck here too. But you hear about like how bad it is in Britain as well. Like
it's
fucking
everywhere.
taking pictures of like the princess or duchess on the balcony when she's naked, and I'm like, that's so fucking rude. How is that? How do you live with yourself doing that?
Why are we releasing to the public people's autopsy reports?
Yeah. That's none of our business.
That is nobody's fucking business. Nope. Why is that being leaked? Ever? Nope.
Just have to know.
Nope. Doesn't.
This is a TMZ world.
This fucking hate it. World. Hate it so much. Thanks for angering me on Valentine's Day.
It's not even Valentine's Day today.
No.
If you're listening to this on Valentine's Day, I'm glad I angered you. Made you really mad.
Yeah. Oh, man. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. If you have any stories that you would like to hear, you can email us at peoplekeepdying@gmail.com.
You can rate us, subscribe to us.
Leave a little review. Tell us how we did.
How we did it so well and how much you love us. You think we're so funny.
Yeah. Tell me all about my sexy, sick voice.
We are. Yes. That's all I want to hear, about how great we are.
We only want to hear how great we are.
Yeah, nothing else.
Nothing else. Thanks so much. And we hope that you guys don't die.
Yes.
And you're able to listen to us next week. And yeah.